Hi guys, it's album review time, but before that, have a look at this. I want to give a huge shout out to the band Black and Damned. Can't believe what I got through the post today. Some great stickers, Black and Damned stickers, a patch, a Black and Damned patch. Heavenly Creatures on CD, their first album, amazing stuff. A signed photo of the band. And of course, as you can see, this amazing Black and Damned Servants of the Devil t-shirt. Have a look what's on the back as well, inserted in that photo. And guys, this band are amazing. I've just heard their album as well. This is a German metal band. You guys are going to love this on this channel. We've reacted to one of their songs already. You're going to love the album. It's out on Rock of Angels Records on April the 28th. It's their second album. There's 2 videos out already from this band, Dream Hunter, which I reacted to, and Hyena's Call. Check out both those songs from an amazing album, April the 28th, Rock of Angels Records, Black and Damned.
'Cause what we see with Hyena's Call.
So, Metallica, 72 seasons, perhaps the biggest metal release of the year. Well, it will be the biggest metal release of the year. They're a huge band, Metallica. Been a fan since, not right at the beginning, probably about Ride the Lightning time, I would say. I've been a fan since, so a lot of years. So this album come out today, April the 14th on Blackened Recordings, which is Metallica's own label. The album is 77 minutes long. We'll get on to the length of the album in a minute. See if it's too long or if it's long enough or whatever, you know, it depends what your views are really. So obviously the band have been together a lot of years now, the lineup as it is. You've got James Hetfield on vocals and guitar. I just want to say that James Hetfield on this album sounds absolutely brilliant. He sounds as good as ever. I actually think he sounds better. He sounds almost like more youthful than he has done the last few years. I don't know what he's doing with his vocal calls to make him sound like that, but I think he's got a brilliant vocal across this. And some really great points through the album where he's stretching, and well, it doesn't sound like he's stretching, but he's going to those higher sort of levels. He's not screaming like Bruce Dickinson, but he never has done. But he's got such a powerful vocal, unmistakable vocal as well. I really like his vocals. You've got Robert Trujillo on the bass. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I mean, he's been a staple now. Obviously the newest member in this band, but I mean, out of all the bands that have been around since the 80s, I mean, the people in this band have been a staple, you know, for a long, long time now. Obviously, Kirk Hammett weren't joined from the beginning, but Robert Trujillo was, I can't remember what year it was, but he's been together with the band now a long, long time. So, you know, they're really tight as a unit, but he's a great bass player, and the production on this album really shows off his bass playing. Some of it's quite simple, I suppose you would say. I'm not a bass player, I'm not a musician as such, but you know, running bass lines and stuff like that. But I like the sound of his bass, and I like the sound of the bass on this album. I like the sound of the album altogether, actually. We'll get on the production as well in a minute, but he's a great bass player. I love I think he suits Metallica perfectly for what they're going for now. Kirk Hammett on guitar, obviously a long staple of Metallica. Great guitar player. He takes a lot of stick. He has recently as well for some of the solos on this album. I think one in particular, was it Libby Turner? I think he's taken stick for. I've never liked Kirk Hammett in particular for his solos. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guitar player. I think he fits Metallica's sound perfectly. The only thing I would say about Kirk Hammett, I think he uses a bit too much wah-wah pedal at times. He's done it for years. You're not going to stop him now, but I think that is something he could drop a little bit more, but I do like his playing. I'm sorry, but I do. And Lars Ulrich, so on drums, probably the most talked about musician in Metallica's lineup. A lot of stuff about him on the internet I read about how bad he is. I ain't got a problem with Lars Ulrich at all. I think he's a great songwriter, drummer. I mean, man, Metallica wouldn't be who they were today if it wasn't for Lars Ulrich. All right, he might have a, you know, people have got a problem with his personality. I don't know. But as a drummer, I think he sounds great on this. He sounds really solid. He sounds tight. I like his playing. I'm not a professional drummer, so I don't really, maybe I haven't got the say in it as some people will have, you know. I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, but I really like his drumming, and I think he sounds great on this album for sure. So the guys seem to be really in tip-top shape when it comes to how tight this band are, the grooves they give out during this album, and the songwriting in general. I think it's really good. It really sounds urgent. It sounds better, in my opinion, than the last two albums by quite a long way. So that's saying something. I've quite liked the last two albums, so to say it's better than those two, I'm quite happy with this album altogether, really. So I think at this stage in their career, I think many Metallica fans, and that's not all of them, wouldn't be happy no matter what. So I think whatever they brought out now, people would have a problem with it. People are stuck in the past too much sometimes. Let me get this straight. My favourite Metallica albums are Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets and Justice for All. I love those albums, especially Master of Puppets. I think it's just a timeless classic that never gets old. So people, whether they're expecting them to go back to that sort of style, that's not going to happen. And should it happen? You know, someone put a really interesting comment the other day on, I've never read before, on Facebook, saying if Master of Puppets was brought out now, people would have a problem with it. And I think that's probably true. You know what I mean? The album's there, so you can't take it away. But if Metallica didn't have that album, they brought it out now, people might have a problem with it, either the way it sounds, you know, or, you know, the production, because it weren't the greatest, although it stood the test of time quite well. Or people would have a problem with, you know, the length of the songs. People have got a problem no matter what, haven't they? So I think it's the best you could think of for 60 plus year old guys in a band that have been going from the 80s. I think it's a brilliant album. And in my opinion, it shouldn't let anyone down. This should exceed expectations for Metallica fans, in my opinion, by the way. So the only thing I would say on this album, and I'm going to go through the tracks, track by track, is that I'm missing a slow song. And I don't particularly mean a ballad, because I know that would also upset a lot of Metallica fans. I don't mean something like Nothing Else Matters. I don't mean a love song or anything like that. I mean something, you know, along the lines of slower pace, something like Fade to Black or Sanitarium, something like that. That sort of pacing. Again, I don't mean I want them to write another Fade to Black or another Sanitarium. It's just missing that. One song, I think, one or two, because you've got 12 songs in here, 77 minutes long. I think it wouldn't hurt to drop one of those and have like a slower song in it, a brooding sort of dark, almost ballad if you like. I think that's all I'm missing on this album for sure. It's produced by Greg Feidelman. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He done Hardwired, the last album. I think it's a lot better, this production. Like I said, I think a lot of the urgency that the band are portraying on this album, not just coming from the songwriting, comes from the production as well. The drums sound great. It's almost, they've sort of taken a little bit of a blueprint, I'd say, from the Black Album. The drum sound, in my opinion, was one of the best drum sounds I've ever heard on an album. And it feels a bit like that, especially the kick drum and the snare. They've got that feel of the Black Album a little bit for me. And that's never a bad thing. So guys, I think this is a great album. I wish I'd heard it a bit sooner and I could have had a little bit more time with this album, but it's out today, so I've given it a listen through twice. And here's my opinions of the songs themselves. So I won't go into detail too much, especially the singles. So you've got 72 Seasons, starts the album off, the title track, the single, 7 minutes and 39 seconds long. It's tight, it's thrashy. The rhythms are great throughout. About the 1.5 minute mark, Hetfield comes in. So it's a great introduction to the album, like a long intro. I love that. I love the slower parts of it. And I don't mean slow as in slow, but they've got like speedy parts and they've got sort of medium pace parts. The short bridge to the chorus, I absolutely love. It gives me that sort of And Justice sort of feels a little bit. It really is relentless thrash on this one and fucking great for it as well. I love the twin lead part at the end of the solo. Like I say, I'm not the biggest fan of Hammett's solos, but when he does like a melodic part like that and he does a bit of a twin lead with Hetfield, it sounds fucking great. Sort of adds a classic metal feel to it. A great opening track. Then we go on to Shadows Follow. It's just over 6 minutes long, this one. It's here you really feel the bass rumbling along in the mix on this. I mentioned it earlier on, it really does sound good. This has a real new wave of British heavy metal feel, and lots of this album does, and that's sort of the core of Metallica, if you like. That's where their influence comes from. Although they didn't start that long, they probably started around the same time as new wave of British heavy metal, but a lot of their influence comes from that period. The chorus might take a couple of listens for me still to worm its way in, but it's still great and I've got no complaints at all about it. I love the groove and the energy the band have in this track. It feels like the track gains momentum as it goes on, although it doesn't gain in rhythm, you know, it doesn't get faster or anything, but it feels like it is because it's getting more and more exciting and like build up for the song, especially when the change ups before that solo. Just a fantastic song. Another single, Screaming Suicide. I want to talk about that one. This was the second single. Again, that new wave of British heavy metal influence here for sure. The bass rumbling along again sounds fucking great. Lars adding some really cool little drum touches in the verses. I noticed that actually when I first heard this song. I love that. The song is another relentless riff fest. I mean, the album is really. It's like full up just with riffs after riff after riff, as Metallica do. The next song, Sleepwalk My Life Away. Nearly 7 minutes long, this one. It's sort of slow to medium paced. A stomping bass starts this track off, and the band hit a great medium paced groove. This song sees the band hitting a groove that by now it's like almost effortless. It's what they're all about. They've got a real fucking cool groove. There's a lot of bands like this, but a lot of bands can't get it right. You know, a completely off tangent here, but AC/DC is one of those bands. They've got a certain groove, it's so tight, and not many bands can get it that tight. Metallica are like that. And it comes from great chemistry and songwriting also. It's a cool chugging track, this one, with the only real change-ups coming just after the solo, about the halfway part. You Must Burn is the next one.
Smile as it burns to the ground. The perfect don't want you around.
Oh yeah, love this one. Just over 7 minutes long. Love the dirty riff throughout this track. Similar to, you know, it's got the feels of, not exactly the same, sort of Leper Messiah sort of groove for me. Another slow medium pace song. Sort of think sad but true sort of pace. It's got a slightly Sabbathy feel to this. It might just be me, but I feel that, and I love the track for it. The doomy riffs at the halfway mark and sort of give that Sabbathy feel even more. My favourite track of the album at this stage of listening to the album, a dark, doomy track. Lux Eterna is next. The first single, back to the new wave of British heavy metal feel that this album has. And if that's the Metallica you want, then this song gives it to you in spades. Speedy, straight to the point, some cool double kick drums from Lars, a frenetic 3 minutes 20-second song. Crown of Barbed Wire is next.
This rusted empire I own. Bleed as I rust on this throne. Pierce me with torment.
I love the riff when it kicks in at the beginning and through the verses. They can still come up with some fucking great riffs, you know. A slow to medium paced track that has a great stomp driven by the rhythm section. It's some dark, heavy blues to some of the guitar riffs here. Really like the chuggy part before the solo. It's a song that has one of my favourite riffs on the album. Next up is Chasing Light, 6 minutes and 45 seconds. I am saying the length of some of these songs because you can get an idea of how long some of them are. This track moves along at a great pace, similar, I would say, to Screaming Suicide. I think it's at this point, I really appreciated Hetfield's vocals even more. He hasn't lost an inch when it comes to his vocal ability. A cool change up at the 4 minute mark brings another solid track. If Darkness Had a Sun. This was my favourite single release. I know that's a bone of contention with some of the fans looking at comments below videos and stuff. I think this is where they hit the sweet spot for me, where others might find it dull. I don't know, that was some of the comments. I don't at all. That's where we're all different. We like different stuff for sure. It has a sort of almost God That Failed feel to me off the Black Album. It's a great track. Next up is Too Far Gone.
Too far gone. Am I too far gone? Am I too far gone to say?
This was released today as a single as well, I think, although they're probably all released now. I really like the chorus on this one, very catchy indeed. Probably the catchiest chorus for me on the album, whereas the vocals are pretty paint by numbers Metallica, which ain't a bad thing by the way. The change up in the chorus really makes it a bit of a standout track for me. Also love the Thin Lizzy inspired twin lead parts. Next up is Room of Mirrors. Again, the rumbling bass playing a big part in this sort of thrashy but extremely catchy track. Mainly the verses are the most catchiest thing on this. This sounds pretty old school Metallica with the guitar work as well. I love the way they effortlessly go in and out of rhythm changes, but it's not disjointed at all. Sounds great. A really catchy, almost power metal. I'm sort of scared to say it, almost power metal twin lead part on this. The verses are the winner here though. The chorus is going to take some extra listening, but love the song nonetheless. Let me finish off with, got to say this properly, Inamorata. It's the last song. It's 11 minutes and 10 seconds long. Again, I get classic Sabbath vibes here on this one. Almost like a long lost Iommi riff. And that's saying something at the start of this epic track. You get that sort of bluesy metal sound that the band sort of, they come up with a lot now. It sort of works its way into the chorus in this medium paced track. I really like the middle part where the song literally dies down to hardly anything. And it's almost like got a, with the vocal lines, and there's a bit of harmonising and background vocals, almost got a 70s prog feel, a tiny bit. I'm glad the song changed up at the halfway point. And the latter part of this song probably is the best part. It gets better and better, this song, as it goes on. So that's it, guys. Metallica's new album, 72 Seasons, out today. Who's got it? What do you think of it? How do you compare it? I know that it's going to take a lot for them to beat anything, you know, from the 80s period. For me, the best period. But I do accept that the band are fucking great now. I always think, when I listen to Metallica, I think they've got such, people have got such a high expectation of them. I almost tried to listen to this album as if it wasn't Metallica. And what if it was another band, how would you perceive it? And I think it would blow people's mind. I think it's just that level, that pedestal that we put Metallica on. Always expect the best. That, sometimes people get disappointed. I'm not. I think it's a great album. I can't wait to see them at Download do their double set. I really can't wait to hear some of these songs off this great album. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below, guys. I'll see you soon.